I tell you all that I decided I'd get back on today and just try to tell you all a little bit more as I kind of go about this little bit of work here with these little projects for the shows coming up for when we have the events for Christmas in July in a couple months. I'd say it's almost June now, so we're already kind of getting there. And I tell you, I keep turning on these videos and keep forgetting where I laid things. Well, as of now, I had to stop the video a moment to look for this other poplar blank I had. But I'll tell you, we're probably going to have little discussions as we kind of carve away on these. These are a fairly soft wood, so they're kind of easier to carve, and so that's why we're kind of making our way about them. And so this is something that can be simply done with a knife, and of course you could with the other harder woods too, but it would take a little longer. Not much need to power carve poplar though, because it's fairly simple to carve. Whether or not it's hard just kind of depends on the person. Some people say it is, but to those of you who remember how I used to mention Calvin Grant in my videos, he always said it wasn't hard. It must not have been hard for him to carve, and it's not really all that hard for me either. You know, it's kind of, I'd say for me, almost like carving butternut or sassafras or something like that maybe. And I'd say for a little work that comes this way into all we do, we can kind of make things so they have just the right amount of decor in them. And so this was what I felt most up to today. There had been things in life I hadn't been doing for a while because of how the pandemic was for the last few years. Kind of got away from doing the movies for a while just because they were getting to the point where it just seemed like every other row was closed off because of the pandemic, making it so that the only seats that were left were those that were a little bit, I'd say, too close to the screen, where it would be a little bit hard to really see from. So that was just a little bit of the ways that had to go in life. And so I say a little work does its way to us, makes us all see a little ways we do little things. And so I say that is one of those things where I went back to the movie last night after it had been so many years and finally saw one again, and just noticed how a few things about how Movie Tavern had changed and how Marcus Theater had changed and how they kind of changed things around the place, and even to where they removed those little buttons off the desks of the recliners where you could call the server, and ended up kind of changing it to where you ordered on an app instead. I'd say for me, there was nothing wrong with that because I'd say if you've got a good debit card that you can make a good purchase with, it probably works just as well. And, but I'd say that it's kind of come to the point where if you wanted to pay with cash or had to pay with cash, you'd have to go to the bar to order it. I tell you, I just won't get too personal with you now. Already kind of did that in a Facebook post with some of my friends, not from my business page, but from my personal profile, which is where I kind of did that from. Want to show you all what I've done so far. I've kind of shaved off all this wood around here to make it where it kind of separates a bit from the ruffle at the bottom of the coat. I say that there gets to be little moments in our lives. We're going to get a little overtime worked, and I'd say have a little extra work to come in us, you know. I'd say that with all the things I've mentioned in a video earlier the past week about my school cafeteria job, I'm going to a new school next year to work at, so this is going to be a better one. And I'd say not perfect, but I'd say just less distraction. Won't have any dumb waiters to answer. Won't probably, if I ever have to answer the door, it won't be that big a deal. But whoa, I tell you, I couldn't stress to you all the little things over the years of how it's been. We're at least being thankful we get to have stuff taken care of, have stuff out of the way. Not too much I could come on here all too publicly and talk about, but little issues have happened sometimes. Sometimes, people are just not always the most professionally behaved everywhere you go. I tell you, one little thing I'd say is what I really liked was this Instagram story that Autumn Ann Nielsen, the TikToker, recently posted. I'd say, couldn't tell you too much about it, but it's all this stuff where she kind of says, oh, even though I'm an adult, you can't take me anywhere and expect me to behave, and kind of showed a little thing she was kind of doing around a water fountain out there. Somebody filming that, I say, and so I tell y'all, some things are just going to kind of be the way life is going to go these days, and so sometimes people can kind of do things on social media just to try to get attention or be funny. I tell you, and in my life, I've had older accounts with MySpace and Facebook where that's probably the kind of thing I've done before, and it just wasn't the kind of thing where it would kind of be strange enough that people would kind of think different things. I'd try to be funny, but make people think I was creepy or whatever. So it's just how the times work, how they change a little bit. And I say, as for this little work, it's coming this way. Finally proud to be carving some little poplar Santa Clauses. Finally going to carve out the boots now. And with all little things, I'd like to share a little more. Probably saw my gingerbread men on the videos. You saw them on the Facebook business page, the ones that I made out of the little socks and all. So that was just kind of how that's worked out for me. It's probably been the best thing that came as of yet, with all the little work I've done, all the little things I've made. You've probably seen how it's all just worked out so good, made itself so much better for you and me to come across these little things, see what they do, see what they say. They're going to try to show us a little skill in our life and make us so we're going to see a little brave time in our lives with all we kind of got to do. And I say that with this little poplar boy, it's going to be the work of our hands. It's going to be the thing that shows us the greatness of God and the power in our soul. And as you see, I'm coming along this, making the little cuts just fine, making the little narrows just fine, and I'd say hopefully we'll get the boots carved out on these other ones as well. These ones made from African mahogany and genuine mahogany. And you know, if you know me, I can sometimes kind of do a little talking on and on here. There's been little funny things that been going around social media lately, and sometimes, just sometimes, you know, things can just get in the world and they can get a little controversial on us. Sometimes even somebody's humor can be a little controversial as well. We have our different views on what we find humorous, as I've heard it said. Finally, we're going to get down to the very last part of the boots, and then this is how they're going to turn out when we get it all done in the end. I say that colors can make a difference. Colors can brighten us in many ways. They can show us around, show us who we are, show us what we do, make us see a little light in us for all we come to be, all we are. And so all things, I say, there's probably other steps to take. We'll take further on down the line. And with this, I just have a little thing to show as far as just what I do when I work my way along things. And so this little Santa Claus is coming its way, making its way to us, and this is what we're going to see, a little work done. I've looked into my books that I got last Christmas, and when I looked into them, I saw little things, saw there were some instructions as to how they recommend as far as how you can power carve things. Come to see why the books get so expensive, because they have more detailed instructions. I'd say that there's one that I'll show you here when I get around to it, but I say round off the boots first, and then come down to making it so we see it out like this, and kind of give you a little moment to show you the book I got for Christmas last year about carving the blue jay. It's probably a little more detailed than some of the cardinals I've carved from the Rick Butts book, and you know, some of the things you've probably seen in that pattern. One of these days I might get around to carving one of these, but do see it's a power carving project, and therefore it's a little bit more detailed, I say. And we're gonna come around now to where we're going to carve out this last pair of boots here. This won't be the last pair of boots I ever carve, but last one for this video, because I mean I only have like 2 of these little poplar Santas to make, so we're going to make that out of what we have, use what we have to finish that. And I'd say these are just among my little popular selling things around Christmas time. And this Santa, it's not all that traditional. It's not like the one where he has the pom-pom on his hat, but this one has more of a coat and a hood. And I say that there's been times I've taken these and my little Alpine St. Nicholas's out to little autism banquets, and somebody would think of these Santas as being more like Santa for who he is now, and the little alpine ones as being Santa for like when he was a priest. Some of us, we all know the old story about old Father Nicholas from back in the 4th century, the 300s AD, and the bishop, how he kind of went around just doing generous things for kids, and one day he ended up becoming the bishop in the church and making it so that he could really show Christianity to others. I mean, they changed his name a lot over the years, and come down to it, it's like he had a lot of stories. I've heard so many different stories about him. Y'all might even recall the story about the dowry bags. You remember that? There was the man who had the 3 daughters, and he couldn't afford dowries for their husbands. He couldn't afford to give them away in marriage because he couldn't afford dowries to pay the husbands for the daughters to live off of. So that was kind of why he was just about to sell his daughters into slavery, into slaves. And so that was why Nicholas came by, and he had all this money in these burlap sacks, and went into the house and during the night he dropped it into the gowns of those girls. And the father found the dowries the next day, and he was truly blessed. He was able to save his own daughters and give them away in marriage to some husbands, and because they were getting grown, he couldn't really continue to afford to take care of them. So that was how the work came along. That was how it went. That was how they dealt with it, how they took care of it. And so, with all things due, I say that this was the work that was done for the sake of the happy people in the land. I'll tell you one thing is that, it can be a little bit of work just to kind of get down to in between the boots like this, but I say that we're gonna take little ways into this, make matters come in our own hands, and I say that that's how a little work is going to make its way to us. I see a little bright light coming in. Oh, the joy of the Lord is my strength. And I say that there's probably going to be little places we're going to come along here, try to make out the hem of the garment now, try to round it off a little more, make it so it's rounder to the top, rounder along the bottom, and then pretty soon, one of these days, I hope to get good enough at making a face on these that one day I'll be able to film myself recording it. But I tell you, the little faces on these things are so much additional work that sometimes you just kind of have to do a thing or two a little different here and there. And so now you all can see where I come along with the little work I do. I tell y'all that this could be a lot for a video. This could be a lot to learn. And more than that, how to kind of come along and make it so that we see a little bright light of day shining through and in us, and tell y'all that a little soul is reaching out to us now. I say we kind of chip this away, make it so it's going to be a little brighter end. So I'll say that we've got work here that makes its way in us. And now we got one more thing to do here. Carve along this little hem, kind of round it off at the bottom like we did at the top. Make it so it's going to come out nice and round and curvy and slowly, and then kind of make a little way, work into the guy and put a little healthy wealth into his soul and into his spirit and into his shoe and his boot. And I say that, you know, there's a lot of things in life where, you know, we don't control the way they go, but they all come out better in the end, make a better people of us as we come out in the end. I say, with this little worky way, it's just kind of the way I say that this is just to come along now, make it way so we all see brighter days, see how things are coming on. And so as for the work, the way we're going to do it is just like little ho-hos, little ho-ho Santa Clauses. I say, we don't know who's going to be in our life forever and who's not. But I'll tell y'all what I've come down to is finally getting down to this. I think we're going to come down to another part when we do another video, but this was the place where I wanted to take you today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.